Millionaire CEO rushes baby to hospital, then breaks down when doctors discover the shocking truth. Alexander Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office, overlooking the glittering skyline of New York City. At 38, he was the epitome of success, CEO of Blackwood Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar tech company he had built from the ground up. His sharp features, expertly tailored suit, and confident demeanor spoke of a man accustomed to power and control. But as he gazed at the city below, Alexander felt a familiar emptiness gnawing at him. For all his wealth and achievements, he was alone. His relentless pursuit of success had cost him his marriage, strained his relationship with his parents, and left him with little time for genuine connections. Born into a middle-class family in a small town in Ohio, Alexander had always been driven. His father, a high school teacher, and his mother, a nurse, had instilled in him the value of hard work and education. But Alexander had wanted more success, more recognition, more wealth than his parents could ever imagine. His rise in the tech world had been meteoric. By 25, he had developed a revolutionary app that caught the attention of major investors. By 30, he had founded Blackwood Enterprises. Now, at 38, he was at the pinnacle of his career, with a net worth that put him squarely in the billionaire category. But success had come at a price. His ex-wife, Sophia, had left him 2 years ago, tired of competing with his work for attention. His parents, once proud of his achievements, now rarely called, put off by his increasingly arrogant and distant behavior. Even his younger sister, Emma, once his closest confidant, had drifted away, unable to relate to the man her brother had become. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city, Alexander's thoughts drifted to the charity gala he was obligated to attend that evening. It was the kind of event he usually dreaded, full of small talk and thinly veiled business negotiations disguised as philanthropy. But as the chair of the hospital board, he couldn't avoid it. Little did Alexander know that this gala would be unlike any other he had attended. As he adjusted his tie and prepared to leave, he was blissfully unaware that the events of the coming hours would challenge everything he thought he knew about success, family, and the true meaning of wealth. The night ahead would force Alexander to confront the man he had become and the values he had left behind in his relentless pursuit of success. It would be a night that would change his life forever, starting a chain of events that would lead him to rush into a hospital, desperately clutching a baby in his arms, and ending with a revelation that would leave everyone in tears. The charity gala was in full swing when Alexander arrived at the opulent hotel ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the crowd of New York's elite, all dressed in their finest attire. The air was filled with the soft strains of a string quartet and the murmur of polite conversation. Alexander moved through the room with practiced ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He was in his element, the consummate businessman, even in a social setting. As he made his way to the bar, he overheard snippets of conversation: stock prices, real estate deals, the latest tech innovations. It was a world he understood, a language he spoke fluently. "Mr. Blackwood," a voice called out. Alexander turned to see Dr. Sarah Chen, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, approaching him. "I'm so glad you could make it. There's someone I'd like you to meet." Before Alexander could respond, Dr. Chen was guiding him towards a small group near the stage. As they drew closer, he noticed a young woman in a simple but elegant dress, holding a baby in her arms. The woman looked out of place among the glittering socialites, her face etched with a mixture of worry and determination. "Mr. Blackwood, this is Mia Thompson," Dr. Chen introduced them. "Mia, this is Alexander Blackwood, the chair of our hospital board." Mia shifted the baby to one arm and extended her hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Blackwood. Thank you for all you do for the hospital." Alexander shook her hand, noting the strength in her grip despite her delicate appearance. "The pleasure is mine, Miss Thompson. And who is this little one?" he asked, gesturing to the baby. "This is Lily," Mia said, her voice softening as she looked at the child. "She's the reason I'm here tonight." As if on cue, Dr. Chen stepped in. "Mia and Lily are here to share their story. Lily was born with a rare heart condition, and thanks to the advanced pediatric cardiac unit that your donations helped fund, she's alive and thriving today." Alexander nodded, only half listening. He had heard countless stories like this at events over the years. While he understood their value for fundraising, they rarely moved him personally. He was about to make his excuses and move on when something unexpected happened. Lily, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, suddenly reached out towards Alexander. Her tiny hand grasped at the air, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that was startling in one so young. Without thinking, Alexander leaned in closer. In that moment, several things happened at once. Lily's little hand latched onto Alexander's tie, pulling with surprising strength. Mia, caught off guard, lost her balance on her high heels, and Alexander, reacting instinctively, reached out to steady them both. The next thing he knew, Alexander found himself holding Lily. The baby settled contentedly in his arms, still clutching his tie, while Mia regained her footing with Dr. Chen's help. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood," Mia exclaimed, reaching to take Lily back. But Alexander found himself reluctant to let go. There was something about holding this tiny, vulnerable life that stirred emotions he hadn't felt in years. Lily looked up at him, her big blue eyes curious and trusting, and Alexander felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to protect her. "It's all right," he heard himself saying. "She's fine where she is for now." As he stood there, a billionaire CEO cradling a baby he had just met, Alexander felt a shift in the atmosphere around him. The constant buzz of business talk faded into the background. For the first time in longer than he could remember, he was fully present in the moment, not thinking about deals or stock prices or his next meeting. Mia, recovering from her embarrassment, began to tell Lily's story. She spoke of the terrifying diagnosis during her pregnancy, the doctors who had advised termination, the sleepless nights wondering if her baby would survive. And then she spoke of hope, the hope that the hospital's advanced cardiac unit had given them, the skilled surgeons and dedicated nurses who had saved Lily's life. As Alexander listened, still holding Lily, he felt something crack inside him. The walls he had built around his heart, the defenses he had erected to protect himself from emotional entanglements, began to crumble. He looked down at the baby in his arms, this tiny fighter who had faced more challenges in her short life than he had in all his years, and felt a wave of emotion he couldn't quite name. Little did Alexander know that this moment, this chance encounter with a baby at a charity gala, would be the catalyst for a series of events that would turn his carefully constructed world upside down. The inciting incident had occurred, setting in motion a chain reaction that would force Alexander to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about success, happiness, and the true meaning of wealth. As the gala continued around them, Alexander stood rooted to the spot, holding Lily and listening to Mia's story. He was unaware that in just a few short hours, he would be rushing into a hospital, this same baby in his arms, facing a crisis that would change his life forever. The charity gala was winding down, the crowd thinning, as New York's elite began to make their way home. Alexander, however, found himself lingering, still captivated by Mia and Lily's story. He had long since handed Lily back to her mother, but the impact of holding the baby hadn't faded. As the last of the guests departed, Alexander offered to walk Mia and Lily to their car. The night air was crisp as they stepped outside, the city's perpetual hum a contrast to the quiet intensity of their conversation. "Miss Thompson," Alexander began, then paused. "Mia, I want to thank you for sharing your story tonight. It's given me a lot to think about." Mia smiled, adjusting Lily in her arms. "Thank you for listening, Mr. Blackwood. It means a lot to have someone in your position take an interest." As they reached Mia's modest sedan, Alexander was struck by the contrast between her circumstances and the opulent world he inhabited. Something compelled him to ask, "Is there anything else you need? Anything the hospital isn't providing?" Mia hesitated, then spoke softly. "Actually, there is one thing. Lily needs another surgery soon, but I'm struggling to take enough time off work. I'm a single mom, and my job at the diner doesn't offer much flexibility." Alexander felt a pang of guilt, thinking of the millions he had in the bank, while this woman worried about taking time off to care for her sick child. "I might be able to help with that," he said, reaching for his wallet to give her his card. "Call my office tomorrow and we'll see what we can arrange." As he handed Mia his card, A gust of wind blew through the parking lot. A piece of paper fell from Mia's purse, and Alexander bent to retrieve it. As he straightened, his eyes fell on the writing on the paper, and he felt the world tilt on its axis. It was a paternity test result. And there, in black and white, was a name he knew all too well: Alexander Blackwood. "Mr. Blackwood, are you all right?" Mia's voice seemed to come from far away. Alexander looked up, his mind reeling. Lily's big blue eyes, so familiar, stared back at him from Mia's arms. Eyes that, he now realized, were the same shade as his own. "This paternity test," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. It's mine." Mia's face drained of color. "How did you? I never meant for you to see that. I wasn't going to tell you. I didn't want you to think I was after your money." The pieces fell into place in Alexander's mind. A charity event 2 years ago. Too much champagne. A warm, comforting presence in a moment of vulnerability after signing his divorce papers. He had never gotten her last name, had convinced himself it was best to forget the whole thing. "Lily is... she's my daughter?" The words felt foreign on his tongue. Mia nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I know this must be a shock. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't know how to reach you. And then when Lily was born with her heart condition, everything else just fell away." Alexander stared at Lily, seeing her in a new light. His daughter. He had a daughter. A daughter who had been fighting for her life since the day she was born, while he had been oblivious, focused on his next business deal. The revelation hit him like a physical blow. He, Alexander Blackwood, self-made billionaire, the man who prided himself on controlling every aspect of his life, had a child he knew nothing about. A child who needed him. As the full impact of this discovery washed over him, Alexander felt something shift deep inside. The carefully constructed walls around his heart crumbled completely, replaced by a fierce, protective love he had never experienced before. In that moment, looking at Mia's tearful face and Lily's innocent eyes, Alexander knew his life would never be the same. The revelation of his daughter's existence had cracked open a part of him he didn't know existed, setting the stage for a profound transformation. Little did he know that this discovery was just the beginning. The events set in motion by this revelation would soon have him racing into a hospital, his newfound daughter in his arms, facing a crisis that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and the world around him. Alexander stood in the parking lot, the paternity test results clutched in his trembling hand, his world irrevocably altered. The cool night air did little to clear the fog of shock and disbelief that clouded his mind. Mia watched him warily, Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms, blissfully unaware of the life-changing revelation that had just occurred. In that moment, Alexander Blackwood, the man who had built an empire on quick decisions and calculated risks, faced the most important choice of his life. He could walk away, pretend this night never happened, return to his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, or he could step into the unknown, embrace the role of father to a child he never knew he had, a child who needed him more than anyone ever had before. The old Alexander, the one who existed before holding Lily in his arms, might have chosen the easy path. But something had shifted within him. The feeling of that small, warm body in his arms, the trust in those blue eyes so like his own, had awakened something he thought long dead. "I want to be part of her life," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Part of both your lives, if you'll let me." Mia's eyes widened in surprise, then filled with tears of relief. "Are you sure? This isn't going to be easy. Lily's condition—" "I'm sure," Alexander interrupted, a steely determination in his voice. "Whatever Lily needs, whatever you both need, I'll provide it. I've missed so much already. I don't want to miss another moment." With those words, Alexander set in motion a chain of events that would dramatically alter the course of his life. The consequences of his decision were immediate and far-reaching. The next morning, Alexander called an emergency meeting with his company's board of directors. He announced his intention to take a leave of absence to focus on his newly discovered daughter's health needs. The news was met with shock and resistance. "Alexander, be reasonable," argued Vernon Prescott, his CFO and longtime friend. "You can't just abandon the company. We're in the middle of crucial negotiations for the European expansion." But Alexander stood firm. "This is not up for debate. My daughter needs me, and I intend to be there for her. I trust you all to keep things running smoothly in my absence." As he left the boardroom, ignoring the murmurs of discontent behind him, Alexander felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something truly meaningful. The media frenzy that followed was intense. News of the billionaire CEO's secret love child spread like wildfire. Paparazzi camped outside his penthouse and Mia's small apartment. Social media exploded with speculation and judgment. Alexander's carefully cultivated public image took a hit, with some praising his decision to step up as a father, while others criticized his past behavior and questioned his ability to lead the company. But Alexander found he cared less about public opinion than he ever had before. His focus was entirely on Lily and her upcoming surgery. He threw himself into researching her condition, consulting with top pediatric cardiologists around the world. He used his considerable resources to ensure Lily would receive the best possible care. The consequences of his decision rippled through his personal life as well. His parents, initially shocked by the news, rallied around him. His mother flew in from Ohio to help, her nursing background proving invaluable as they navigated Lily's medical needs. His father, always more comfortable expressing love through actions rather than words, took charge of dealing with the media, fiercely protecting his son and newfound granddaughter's privacy. Alexander's sister Emma, who had grown distant over the years, reached out with a heartfelt message of support. "I always knew there was more to you than boardrooms and balance sheets, big brother," she wrote. "I'm proud of you for stepping up. Lily is lucky to have you as a dad." However, not all the consequences were positive. Some of Alexander's old friends, accustomed to his lavish lifestyle and always-on-call attitude, drifted away when he began prioritizing quiet evenings with Lily over lavish parties and business dinners. His social calendar, once filled with exclusive events and networking opportunities, now revolved around doctor's appointments and playdates. The most significant consequence, however, was the profound change in Alexander himself. The man who once measured his worth by the size of his bank account and the power he wielded in the boardroom now found himself humbled by the simple act of holding his daughter's hand. He discovered a patience he never knew he possessed as he sat for hours in hospital waiting rooms, a tenderness that surprised him as he learned to change diapers and prepare bottles. As Lily's surgery date approached, Alexander faced his greatest challenge yet. The procedure was risky, with no guarantee of success. For a man accustomed to controlling every aspect of his life, this uncertainty was nearly unbearable. He found himself, for the first time in years, turning to his parents for support and guidance. "Son," his father said one evening, as they sat in the quiet of Alexander's penthouse after Lily had fallen asleep, "being a parent means living with your heart outside your body. It's terrifying, but it's also the most rewarding thing you'll ever do." These words stuck with Alexander as he navigated the weeks leading up to Lily's surgery. He threw himself into preparations, ensuring everything was in place for her care. He set up a temporary office in Mia's apartment, wanting to be close to Lily at all times. His employees, initially skeptical of his dramatic life change, were won over by his dedication and the new, more empathetic leadership style that emerged as he balanced work with his duties as a father. The night before Lily's surgery, as Alexander sat by her crib watching her sleep, he realized that regardless of the outcome, his decision to be part of her life had already transformed him in ways he never thought possible. He had discovered a capacity for love and selflessness that he didn't know he possessed. As dawn broke on the day of the surgery, Alexander gently lifted Lily into his arms. She stirred slightly, her blue eyes fluttering open to meet his. In that moment, looking into the eyes of his daughter, Alexander felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on, not as the ruthless CEO he once was, but as a father devoted to his child. Little did Alexander know that in just a few hours he would be rushing back into the hospital, Lily in his arms, facing a crisis that would push him to his limits and lead to a revelation that would leave everyone, from the medical team to Alexander himself, in tears. The consequences of his decision to embrace fatherhood were still unfolding, setting the stage for a dramatic turn of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of wealth. As Alexander adjusted to his new role as a father and prepared for Lily's surgery, a secondary plot began to unfold, centered around Mia Thompson. While Alexander's world had been turned upside down by the revelation of Lily's existence, Mia's life had been equally impacted by the sudden involvement of her daughter's biological father. Mia had always been fiercely independent, raising Lily on her own while working long hours as a waitress. She had never expected Alexander to be part of their lives, and his sudden presence brought a mix of relief and apprehension. While she was grateful for the support and resources he provided for Lily's care, she struggled with feelings of inadequacy in the face of his wealth and influence. One evening, as Alexander was leaving after spending time with Lily, Mia finally voiced her concerns. "I'm worried," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What if Lily prefers you? What if I'm not enough for her anymore?" Alexander was taken aback by Mia's vulnerability. He had been so focused on his own journey into fatherhood that he hadn't fully considered how his presence was affecting Mia. "Mia," he said gently, "you're Lily's mother. You've been there for her every day of her life. Nothing can replace that." This conversation marked a turning point in Mia and Alexander's relationship. They began to communicate more openly, working together to create a co-parenting dynamic that respected both of their roles in Lily's life. Meanwhile, at Blackwood Enterprises, the extended absence of their CEO was causing ripples of uncertainty. Vernon Prescott, the CFO, found himself increasingly taking on leadership responsibilities. While he had initially been skeptical of Alexander's decision to step back, he soon discovered a talent for management that he hadn't known he possessed. Under Vernon's guidance, the company began to explore new directions. He championed an initiative to develop medical technologies inspired by Lily's condition. This not only opened up new revenue streams for the company, but also gave the employees a sense of purpose beyond profit margins. However, not everyone was pleased with these changes. A faction within the board, led by the ambitious Miranda Hodge, saw Alexander's absence as an opportunity. They began to quietly maneuver for a change in leadership, arguing that Alexander's personal drama had made him unfit to lead the company. As news of this power struggle reached Alexander, he found himself torn between his responsibilities to the company he had built and his commitment to Lily. It was Mia who provided an unexpected perspective. "You built that company from nothing," she said one night, after Lily had gone to sleep. "It's part of who you are. Maybe there's a way to balance both parts of your life." Her words planted a seed in Alexander's mind. Perhaps there was a way to be both the father Lily needed and the leader his company required. But finding that balance would require him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about success and priorities. As Lily's surgery date drew closer, these various threads, Mia's journey to self-confidence, Vernon's leadership at Blackwood Enterprises, and the looming threat to Alexander's position, began to intertwine in unexpected ways. The challenges faced by each character would soon converge, adding layers of complexity to the main story and setting the stage for dramatic revelations to come. The secondary plot served to deepen the narrative, highlighting the far-reaching impact of Alexander's decision to embrace fatherhood. It showed that his choice had not only transformed his own life, but had set in motion changes that affected everyone around him, from his co-parent to his employees. As these various storylines developed, they added richness and depth to the central theme of transformation and the true meaning of wealth and success. In the weeks leading up to Lily's surgery, the relationships between Alexander, Mia, and Lily evolved in complex and often surprising ways. What had begun as an awkward, tension-filled situation gradually transformed into a unique family dynamic. Alexander and Mia's relationship, initially strained by the shock of their reconnection and the weight of their shared responsibility, began to soften into a partnership. They found common ground in their love for Lily and their determination to give her the best possible care. One evening, as they sat in Mia's small living room reviewing Lily's medical files, Alexander noticed Mia's exhaustion. Without thinking, he reached out and squeezed her hand. "You're doing an amazing job, he said softly. Lily is lucky to have you as her mother." Mia looked up, surprised by the gesture and the compliment. For a moment, the barriers between them seemed to dissolve. "Thank you," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't do this without you." This moment marked a turning point in their relationship. They began to see each other not as the waitress and the billionaire, but as two people united in their love for their daughter. Their conversations, once limited to Lily's care and logistics, expanded to include their own hopes, fears, and dreams. Alexander found himself opening up to Mia about the pressures of his corporate life and his fears of failing as a father. Mia, in turn, shared her struggles as a single mother and her ambitions to return to school one day. They discovered a mutual respect and understanding that neither had anticipated. As for Lily, her bond with Alexander grew stronger with each passing day. Despite his initial awkwardness, Alexander threw himself into fatherhood with the same dedication he had once reserved for business deals. He learned to decipher Lily's cries, mastered the art of bedtime stories, and found joy in the simple act of making his daughter smile. One particularly memorable evening, Alexander arrived at Mia's apartment to find Lily fussy and unable to sleep. Without hesitation, he scooped her up and began to pace the small living room, softly humming a lullaby his own mother used to sing. As Lily's cries subsided and she drifted off to sleep in his arms, Alexander felt a surge of love so powerful it nearly brought him to his knees. Mia, watching from the doorway, felt her heart swell at the sight. It was in moments like these that she knew, despite all the complications, she had made the right decision in allowing Alexander into their lives. The development of these relationships also had a profound impact on Alexander's connections with his own family. His parents, initially shocked by the news of their granddaughter, quickly embraced their new role. Alexander's mother, Ellen, became a frequent visitor, her nursing experience proving invaluable as they navigated Lily's medical needs. One afternoon, as Ellen helped Alexander prepare Lily's medication, she paused and looked at her son with tears in her eyes. "I always knew you had this in you, Alex," she said. "This capacity for love. I'm so proud of the father you're becoming." Alexander's relationship with his sister Emma also underwent a transformation. Emma, who had grown distant over the years, found herself drawn back into her brother's life by the presence of her niece. She became a staunch supporter of Alexander's new path, often defending him against criticism from his old social circle. As the family rallied around Lily, Alexander found himself rediscovering the value of these familial bonds he had long neglected in pursuit of his career. Family dinners, once a rarity, became a weekly occurrence, filled with laughter, love, and the joy of watching Lily grow. Even Alexander's relationship with his ex-wife Sophia saw a shift. When she heard about Lily's condition, Sophia reached out with a heartfelt message of support. While they were not destined to reconcile romantically, they found a new, friendlier footing based on Sophia's genuine concern for Lily's well-being. As Lily's surgery date approached, this network of relationships provided a crucial support system for Alexander and Mia. The love that had grown between them all, romantic, familial, and parental, created a strong foundation that would prove essential in facing the challenges ahead. However, these evolving relationships also added complexity to the situation. As Alexander became more involved in Lily and Mia's daily lives, questions began to arise about the future. What would their family unit look like long-term? How would they balance co-parenting with their individual lives and aspirations? These questions lingered in the background, creating an undercurrent of tension even as their bonds grew stronger. But for now, all of that was secondary to the immediate concern of Lily's health and her upcoming surgery. The relationships that had developed would soon be tested in ways none of them could have anticipated. As events unfolded that would push them all to their limits and reveal the true depth of their love and commitment to each other. The day of Lily's surgery dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the anxiety that gripped Alexander and Mia as they prepared to take their daughter to the hospital. The atmosphere in Mia's small apartment was tense, filled with unspoken fears and desperate hopes. As Alexander gently lifted Lily from her crib, she stirred, her big blue eyes blinking up at him sleepily. "It's okay, sweetheart," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Daddy's got you." The drive to the hospital was silent, each parent lost in their own thoughts and prayers. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Dr. Sarah Chen, her calm demeanor a balm to their frayed nerves. As the medical team prepared Lily for surgery, Alexander and Mia clung to each other, finding strength in their shared love for their daughter. Just before Lily was wheeled into the operating room, Alexander leaned down to kiss her forehead. "Be strong, my little fighter," he whispered. "We'll be right here waiting for you." The hours that followed were the longest of Alexander's life. He paced the waiting room, alternating between intense conversation with Mia and long periods of silence. His parents arrived, offering quiet support, while Emma coordinated with Vernon to keep Blackwood Enterprises running smoothly in Alexander's absence. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Dr. Chen emerged from the operating room. Her face was grave, and Alexander felt his heart drop. "There were complications," she began, "and the world seemed to tilt on its axis." Dr. Chen explained that while the surgery had initially gone well, Lily's heart had unexpectedly stopped beating. They had managed to revive her, but she was now in critical condition. The next 24 hours would be crucial. As the news sank in, Mia collapsed into Alexander's arms, her body racked with sobs. Alexander held her tightly, his own tears falling freely. In that moment, all thoughts of business empires and board meetings vanished. Nothing mattered except the tiny life hanging in the balance. Determined to be near Lily, Alexander used his influence to gain access to the pediatric ICU. He and Maya took turns sitting by Lily's bedside, talking to her, singing softly, willing her to keep fighting. The sight of their daughter, so small and vulnerable amidst the tangle of tubes and wires, was almost unbearable. As night fell, the situation took a turn for the worse. Lily's vital signs began to falter, and the room filled with medical staff working frantically to stabilize her. In the chaos, a nurse accidentally knocked over a tray of instruments, the clatter echoing loudly in the tense atmosphere. The sudden noise seemed to startle Lily. Her eyes flew open, and to everyone's amazement, her vital signs began to improve. It was as if the shock had jolted her back to life. Dr. Chen, who had been called back to the hospital, stared at the monitors in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like this," she murmured. It's a miracle." As the reality of Lily's improvement sank in, the room erupted in a mix of laughter, tears, and exclamations of joy. Nurses hugged each other, doctors wiped away tears, and in the center of it all, Alexander and Mia clung to each other, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. In that moment, as he held Mia and gazed at their recovering daughter, Alexander had an epiphany. This love, this family, this miracle was true wealth. All the money in the world couldn't compare to the joy he felt watching Lily's chest rise and fall with each precious breath. As dawn broke, bathing the hospital room in a soft golden light, Alexander knew that his life had irrevocably changed. The climactic event of Lily's near-death experience and miraculous recovery had shattered his old perceptions of success and happiness. From this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. In the days following Lily's miraculous recovery, Alexander found himself navigating a complex web of emotions and responsibilities. The joy and relief of Lily's survival were tempered by the realization that her road to full health would be long and challenging. At the same time, the demands of his company and the looming threat to his leadership position could no longer be ignored. Determined to find a way to balance his roles as a father and a CEO, Alexander called for a meeting with Vernon Prescott and Miranda Hodge, the two key players in the power struggle at Blackwood Enterprises. The meeting was set to take place in a private room at the hospital, allowing Alexander to remain close to Lily. As Vernon and Miranda entered the room, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. Alexander took a deep breath. He knew that the next few hours would be crucial in determining the future of both his family and his company. "Thank you for coming," Alexander began, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "I know there have been concerns about my leadership and commitment to the company. I hope that by the end of this meeting, we can find a resolution that works for everyone." Miranda, ever the shrewd businesswoman, didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Alexander, while we're all relieved that your daughter is recovering, the fact remains that your extended absence has left the company vulnerable. The board is considering a vote of no confidence." Alexander nodded, having expected this. I understand your concerns, but I want to propose a solution that I believe will benefit both the company and my family. He outlined a plan that would restructure the leadership of Blackwood Enterprises. He proposed creating a triumvirate at the top, himself as chairman, focusing on overall strategy and vision, Vernon as CEO, handling day-to-day operations, and Miranda as COO, overseeing the company's expanding medical technology division. This structure, Alexander explained, will allow me to remain involved in key decisions while giving me the flexibility to be there for my daughter. It also recognizes the valuable contributions you both have made during my absence. Vernon and Miranda exchanged glances, clearly surprised by the proposal. It was more than either had expected, and it addressed many of their concerns about Alexander's ability to lead while caring for Lily. It's an interesting proposal, Vernon said cautiously, but how can we be sure you won't be too distracted by your personal life to fulfill even these reduced duties? Alexander's response was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was Mia, holding Lily in her arms. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, but Lily was fussing, and I thought maybe she wanted her dad. As Alexander took Lily, cradling her gently, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Miranda and Vernon watched as their typically steely CEO transformed into a gentle, loving father before their eyes. This, Alexander said softly, looking down at Lily, is why I can assure you I'll be more committed than ever to the success of our company. Because now it's not just about building a business empire. It's about creating a better world for her to grow up in. He went on to explain how Lily's condition had opened his eyes to the potential impact Blackwood Enterprises could have in the medical field. He shared his vision for expanding their medical technology division, using their resources and innovation to help other families facing similar health challenges. As Alexander spoke, his passion and sincerity were evident. Miranda, who had been the most vocal critic of Alexander's absence, found herself nodding along. I have to admit, she said, this is not what I expected when I came here today, but I can see the potential in this new direction. Vernon, too, seemed won over. It's a bold move, Alexander, but if we can pull it off, it could take Blackwood Enterprises to new heights. The discussion continued for hours, ironing out details and addressing potential challenges. By the time they left, a tentative agreement had been reached. The new leadership structure would be presented to the board, along with a comprehensive plan for the company's expansion into medical technology. As Vernon and Miranda departed, Alexander felt a mix of relief and excitement. He had found a way to resolve the conflict at work while staying true to his commitment to Lily. But he knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey. Mia, who had been waiting outside with Lily, re-entered the room. How did it go? She asked, her voice tinged with concern. Alexander smiled, taking Lily from her arms. It went well, I think. We found a way forward that should work for everyone. As he explained the new arrangement to Mia, he was struck by how much his priorities had shifted. Just months ago, the thought of giving up any control over his company would have been unthinkable. Now, he found himself excited about the prospect of a more balanced life. What does this mean for us? Mia asked hesitantly. For you and Lily? Alexander looked down at his daughter, then back at Mia. It means I'll be able to be the father Lily deserves, he said softly. And it means we can figure out what our family looks like going forward, without the pressures of my old lifestyle hanging over us. Mia nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. I'd like that, she said. As they left the hospital that evening, Alexander felt a sense of hope he hadn't experienced in years. The conflict at work was on its way to resolution, and he had a chance to build a real relationship with his daughter and her mother. But even as he celebrated this progress, Alexander knew that challenges still lay ahead. The board still needed to approve the new structure, and there were bound to be bumps in the road as they implemented the changes. More importantly, Lily's health remained fragile, requiring ongoing care and attention. Yet for the first time, Alexander felt truly equipped to handle whatever came next. He had found a balance between his professional ambitions and his personal life, and in doing so, had discovered a sense of purpose that went beyond mere financial success. As they drove home, Lily sleeping peacefully in her car seat, Alexander reflected on how far he had come since that fateful night at the charity gala. The journey had been difficult, filled with fear, uncertainty, and moments of despair. But it had also brought him a joy and fulfillment he had never known before. The conflict resolution attempt had been successful, not just in addressing the issues at Blackwood Enterprises, but in helping Alexander resolve the conflict within himself. He was no longer torn between the demands of his business and the needs of his family. Instead, he had found a way to integrate both aspects of his life, creating a new vision for his future that encompassed all that was important to him. As they pulled up to Mia's apartment building, Alexander knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges to face, more conflicts to resolve. But with Lily in his life and this new perspective on what truly mattered, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The weeks following the hospital meeting marked a significant turning point in Alexander's life. The board of Blackwood Enterprises, after initial skepticism, approved the new leadership structure. Alexander found himself navigating a new reality, balancing his reduced role at the company with his increasing responsibilities as a father. This shift in priorities became evident one sunny afternoon as Alexander sat in a board meeting. He was halfway through a presentation on the company's new medical technology initiative when his phone buzzed with a message from Mia. Lily had just taken her first steps. Without hesitation, Alexander apologized to the board, handed over the presentation to Vernon, and rushed out of the office. As he raced across town to Mia's apartment, he realized that this moment, choosing his daughter over a crucial business meeting, represented a fundamental change in his life's direction. Arriving at Mia's, slightly out of breath and with his tie askew, Alexander was greeted by the sight of Lily toddling unsteadily across the living room floor. As he scooped her up in his arms, showering her with praise and kisses, he felt a joy that no business success had ever brought him. The growth hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, nights when he questioned his decision to step back from the company he had built. But with each of Lily's milestones, her first word, her first steps, her first "I love you, Daddy," Alexander felt more certain that he had made the right choice. He had learned patience, a virtue that had never been his strong suit in the corporate world. Dealing with a toddler's tantrums and the slow progress of Lily's recovery had taught him the value of perseverance and the importance of celebrating small victories. His relationship with Mia had deepened in ways he never expected. They had moved from awkward co-parents to friends, and recently to something more. Their shared love for Lily had created a bond between them, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and a growing affection. Even his approach to business had undergone a transformation. The medical technology division of Blackwood Enterprises, once just a strategic move, had become a passion project. Alexander found himself genuinely excited about the potential to help other families facing medical challenges similar to Lily's. As he reflected on these changes, Alexander realized that he had grown not just as a father and a partner, but as a leader. His experiences with Lily had made him more empathetic, more willing to listen, and more invested in the human side of business. The employees at Blackwood Enterprises had noticed the change, often commenting on how much more approachable and understanding he had become. His relationships with his own parents had also undergone a transformation. Watching them dote on Lily had healed old wounds and created new bonds. Alexander found himself calling his father for advice on everything from business decisions to parenting challenges, conversations that would have been unthinkable a year ago. As Lily squirmed in his arms, eager to start her day, Alexander set her down and watched her toddle off towards her toys. He thought about the man he had been before Lily came into his life. Driven, successful, but ultimately unfulfilled. That man would never have believed he could find so much joy in something as simple as watching his daughter play. The journey hadn't been without its challenges. Lily's health still required constant monitoring, and balancing his roles as father, partner, and business leader was an ongoing struggle. But Alexander had learned to embrace these challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to overcome. As he prepared for another day of board meetings and doctor appointments, Alexander felt a sense of contentment he had never known in his years of single-minded career focus. He had discovered that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars and cents, but in the love of family, the satisfaction of meaningful work, and the knowledge that he was making a positive difference in the world. This moment crystallized the new direction Alexander's life was taking. He was no longer solely focused on corporate success and financial gain. Instead, he found himself invested in the simple, profound pleasures of fatherhood. Lily's first words, her first steps, the way her face lit up when she saw him. The change was noticeable to everyone around him. His employees remarked on his more relaxed demeanor and increased empathy. His family marveled at the way he prioritized time with Lily, never missing a doctor's appointment or a milestone moment. Even his approach to business shifted. The new medical technology division, inspired by Lily's condition, became a passion project. Alexander threw himself into researching and developing technologies that could help children with similar health issues. He found a sense of purpose in this work that went beyond profit margins and market shares. As for his relationship with Mia, it too entered a new phase. The shared joy of watching Lily grow and thrive brought them closer. They began to explore the possibility of a deeper connection, taking tentative steps towards building a real family unit. One evening, as they watched Lily play in the park, Mia turned to Alexander with a smile. "You know, when I first told you about Lily, I never imagined we'd end up here." Alexander nodded, his eyes on his daughter. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change it for the world." This turning point represented more than just a change in Alexander's daily routine. It was a fundamental shift in his values, priorities, and the very definition of success. As he embarked on this new direction, Alexander felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that he had never experienced in his years of corporate climbing. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with the challenges of co-parenting, managing a restructured company, and navigating a potential romantic relationship with Mia. But for the first time in his life, Alexander was excited about the journey, not just the destination. As the months passed, Alexander found himself in a period of profound reflection and personal growth. The man who had once measured his worth solely by his business achievements was learning to value different metrics of success. One crisp autumn morning, almost a year after Lily's life-changing surgery, Alexander stood at the window of his penthouse apartment, watching the city come to life below. In his arms, Lily babbled happily, pointing at the colorful leaves in the park across the street. Alexander marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. A year ago, he would have been up at dawn, poring over financial reports and strategizing his next business move. Now his mornings were filled with diaper changes, breakfast battles, and the simple joy of his daughter's laughter. The growth he had undergone, from ruthless CEO to devoted father and compassionate leader, was just the beginning. There was still so much to learn, so many ways to improve. But for the first time in his life, Alexander was excited about the journey, not just the destination. As he scooped up Lily for a goodbye hug before heading to the office, Alexander silently renewed his commitment to this new life he had built. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready to face them, not as the isolated, driven man he once was, but as a father, a partner, and a leader who understood the true value of connection, compassion, and love. As Alexander walked into Blackwood Enterprises headquarters, Lily's laughter still ringing in his ears, he was struck by the profound change in his perspective. The gleaming offices and bustling employees, once the sole focus of his ambition, now seemed like just one part of a much richer, more fulfilling life. In the year since Lily had come into his life, Alexander had learned lessons that no business school could teach. He had discovered that true wealth wasn't measured by the size of his bank account, but by the depth of his relationships and the positive impact he could have on others' lives. The theme of transformation, from self-centered tycoon to compassionate father and leader, had played out in every aspect of his life. His relationship with Mia had blossomed into a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. His company had evolved from a profit-driven enterprise to one that balanced financial success with social responsibility. Most importantly, Alexander had learned the value of vulnerability. The man who once saw emotions as a weakness now understood that his capacity to love, to empathize, and to connect with others was his greatest strength. As he settled into his office, Alexander's eyes fell on a new addition to his desk. A framed photo of Lily, Mia, and himself, taken at the hospital on the day Lily was discharged after her successful surgery. The joy and hope in their faces served as a daily reminder of what truly mattered. The journey that began with a desperate rush into a hospital, a millionaire clutching a baby in his arms, had led to a profound reevaluation of success, happiness, and purpose. Alexander had entered the hospital that day as a wealthy man by society's standards. He had emerged rich in ways he never could have imagined. As he turned to the day's tasks, Alexander felt a sense of peace and purpose. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them not just as a successful businessman, but as a loving father, a supportive partner, and a human being committed to making a positive difference in the world. The transformation was complete, but the journey was far from over, and for the first time in his life, Alexander was truly looking forward to every step of the way.